Hello and welcome back to What You Need to Know for Worship Musicians. And this third and final part of rhythm, we're going to talk about how to actually apply everything that you've learned so far. So we're going to talk about counting. Similarly to an ear training method to learn the major scale, a counting system can also be used to recognize basic rhythmic patterns by ear. On the harmonic side of things, we have harmonic solfege, do, re, mi, and we also have the number system, 1, 2, 3. We also have a very similar system for learning rhythm. So if you have been working on your solfege and you've been working on your ear training for harmony and you know how effective that is, it'll be a lot easier for you to be confident in this method for ear training rhythm. Let's talk about these counting systems and we'll see how similar they are to the solfege system. In the most common counting method, the beats are numbered and the subdivision is given a syllable name. So this is probably the most common way of counting that exists. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Alternatively, solfege methods exist, solfege syllable methods, where specific syllables are assigned to both the beat and its subdivisions. It sounds like this. Ta-dee, 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 ta-dee. These two different counting methods with the numbers and with the solfege syllables mirror the number and solfege systems used to learn and recognize the major scale and chords also in the major scale by ear. This is all fitting under the umbrella of this big idea called ear training. You're training your ear to recognize pitches relative to each other in the major scale, and you're training yourself to recognize rhythms relative to a time signature, relative to a meter. So let's talk about simple and compound time. In simple time, the beat divides in half, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and ta-dee, 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 ta-dee. And maybe you can pick up the inflection in my voice when using these systems. Your voice is absolutely critical. If you don't use your voice, if you don't count out loud, if you don't sing out loud, you're just not going to get it. So you have to use your voice. If that scares you, then good. You'll get used to it and then you'll become a better musician because of that. Compound time, the beat divides into thirds, as you remember from the previous video. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a takida, 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 takida. And when it comes to practicing, you have to use a metronome, you have to be counting out loud, and you have to feel the beat. Get a sense for where's the first beat, where's the second beat, where's the third beat, however many beats there are in the time signature that you're counting. Start by feeling each of those individual beats. Tap your feet, snap your fingers, bob your head, do something physical with your body, and use your voice, and those two things combined together will accelerate your learning. Use the inflections in your voice. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. I'm actually using pitch in my voice and I'm feeling that and I'm hearing that to communicate that to myself, to ingrain it into myself. Then you start to count that first subdivision, which is 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, dividing the beat into half for simple time, thirds for compound time. Most good metronome apps will allow you to change the time signature and will allow you to change how many subdivisions you can hear for the beat. Next, practicing subdivision patterns in a time signature is similar to practicing intervals in a scale. So each is a small piece of a larger whole. It's knowing how the counting system fits into a time signature. I'm going to practice today in 6/8 time. I'm going to practice today in 4/4 time. I'm going to try and count 8th notes, or I'm going to try and count 16th notes. Being intentional about that in your practice is what's going to help you the most. So the last thing that we're going to touch on in this introduction to the counting system, we just want to say that getting the rhythm right is really, 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 really important. If you're not playing the right rhythm, it doesn't matter if you're playing the right notes or not. You're not playing with the rest of the band. Of course, in a worship context, it's congregational. One voice as one church body singing and worshiping together at once. That's why rhythm is so important. King of Kings, this is a particularly difficult song to sing in really good rhythm, dragging out the notes into kind of an 8th note pattern like this. So I've got an exaggerated version of what that sounds like here. In the darkness we were waiting, without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes. Okay, first issue, if you don't understand your rhythm, it's going to be a lot harder for you to breathe, but also it just sounds really boring and really bland. Now here's an example of what it should look like and sound like. If you listen to the song, it doesn't sound like that first version. In the darkness we were waiting. It sounds more like this. 1, 2, 3. In the darkness we were waiting, without hope, without light. Till from heaven you came running, there was mercy in your eyes. That sounds a lot more like how King of Kings should sound. We've got rests and places where you can actually breathe as a singer. Where does my breath stop? And where do I inhale to begin the next phrase? Now here are the two counting methods. First of all, we're going to talk about counting in simple time. So remember, the beat gets a number. The first subdivision is and. The second subdivision is E or A. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1. When you're counting with solfege in simple time, the beat is always ta, the first subdivision is D, and the second subdivision is ka or mi. Takadimi, 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 takadimi. Can you hear again the inflection in my voice? Feel the rhythm and understand the rhythm. And once you're there, you can start to listen to music and you can start to hear the rhythms and you can identify the rhythm as, oh yeah, that's ta, dimi, that's ta, di. You can hear and you identify it with the counting method that you choose. Counting in compound time with numbers, the beat again gets a number and the remaining parts of the first subdivision are and a. 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a. Solfege system, the beat is always ta, that's always the case, and the remaining parts of the subdivision are ki and da. Takida, 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 takida. And if you're curious about counting 16th notes in compound time, you really just need to practice 8th notes in compound time. And if you're practicing 16th notes in simple time, then that will connect the dots when you start to go to 16th notes in compound time. Last, a couple of things to mention here at the very bottom. This is about polyrhythms. If you ever have to sing or play a polyrhythm on your instrument, automatically have to switch between simple and compound counting methods. I'm actually going to show some examples in just a few seconds. This is another reason why solfege might be helpful. Let's say that we're in compound time and we're going to count 16th notes. Ta, va, ki, di, da, ma. Those are our syllables, feeling 3 subdivisions per beat. Tava, ki, di, dama, tava, ki, di, dama. I want to keep all of the same syllables, but I want to switch to more of a simple time feel. Tava, ki, di, dama, tava, ki, di, dama, tava, ki, di, dama. So now I've got more of a 2 feel instead of a 3 feel for my subdivision. Tava, ki, di, dama, 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 tava, ki, di, dama. I'm going in the exact same speed. I'm using the exact same solfege syllables. The only thing that's changing is where am I accenting the subdivision and how am I feeling it. Let's move on now to demonstrating basic rhythmic patterns in both simple and compound time. We're going to use both of the counting methods, the counting with numbers and counting with syllables, takadimi. It'll take you some time to understand all of these concepts, but one of the best ways to help you understand is to actually get your hands dirty and practice. These basic rhythmic patterns are what you should be practicing for your rhythmic practice. Quarter notes in 4/4 time, that's where we'll start right here. Turn on a metronome, 50 or 60 beats per minute. Every single time that metronome clicks, say the next beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, ta, 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 ta. And when you move to your first subdivision, then you're adding in the upbeat, and or D. Without even stopping your metronome, you can go from quarter notes to 8th notes, and you make that mental note in your mind that you're switching. I'm going to count 8th notes now. You're not just going through some mindless routine. You're actually being intentional and you are understanding what you're doing, not because somebody told you do this and that'll make you better. If you don't understand what you're doing, you're never going to get better no matter what. So our 8th notes, take that quarter note beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, and goes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and ta, di, ta, di, ta, di, ta, di. Another good thing to keep in mind is actually give yourself some space to breathe when you're practicing. So count out loud for a measure and then count silently for a measure. Breathe and then count out loud for the next measure. So that might sound something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. You probably can't hear it, but I'm snapping my fingers and I'm moving my head, I'm feeling, I'm counting mentally, and I'm making sure that I'm keeping track of that beat. One of the next most basic rhythmic ideas that you need to be familiar with and practice is a dotted rhythm. So notice the solfege is still ta-di, but this is a dotted note, and this is part of the second beat. That's the upbeat of beat 2. So it doesn't sound like 1 and 2 and. It sounds like 1 and 3 and ta, D ta, D like that. Understanding that this is a dotted rhythm. That's 1.5 beats. And this is the other half of that half beat on the dot right there. This last example right here is a way to kind of flip around kind of that feeling of the dotted rhythm, but this is using a tie instead. So we're going 1 and 3 and 1 and 3 and ta-di, ta-di. The second half of beat 1, this upbeat, is tied to the entirety of beat 2. And the same goes for beat 3 and 4. So we're not going to say anything for beats 2 and 4 because they're tied. They're held over. Here are our 16th notes. Let's count through all these. I'm just going to use the solfege system. Taka-di-mi, 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 taka-di-mi. The next one. Taka-di, 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 taka-di. The next one would look and sound a little bit like this. Ta, di mi 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 ta, di mi. Next is this way. Taka, mi 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 taka, mi. For a long time, you're going to be practicing just straight 16th notes like this, taka-di-mi up here, 1 E and a. Whichever method you choose, the more you can feel every single one of those subdivisions, the more easily you'll be able to practice these other ones. And then we come to the dotted 8th notes, taka, 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 taka. And then we switch to this one right here, and it sounds like this. Ta, mi ta, mi ta, mi ta, mi. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to do it in compound time. So you'll probably want to set your metronome to a faster speed for 6/8 time, just because there is more space between each beat because of the extra note in the subdivision. So if you're starting with your metronome in 4/4 time at something like 50 beats per minute, bump it up to like 80 beats per minute. 1, 2, 1, 2, ta, 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 ta. The defining characteristic of compound time is the first subdivision. So it sounds like this. 1 and a 2 and a 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 taki-da, 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 taki-da. Instead of having dotted rhythms, we actually take away the dot, and that gives us the same variation that we got in simple time by adding a dot. That gives us this. 1, 2, 3, 4, ta, da, ta, da, ta, da, ta. And if we flip that around, we get another similar idea. Taki, 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 taki. One last way that we can mess around with quarters and eighth notes in a single bar is like this, is by tying across the middle two eighth notes. So that's da and ta right here. If we tie those together, they are equal to the same note value as a quarter note. Feels weird, and it sounds a lot like 3/4 time. Ta, da, ki, ta, da, ki. 1, and. 1, and. So this is a real practical example of a very simple polyrhythm. 3 against 2. 3 quarter notes in a measure where there's only supposed to be 2 beats. Right here, you can just see some various examples of all of the extra stuff that goes a little bit above and beyond 16th note patterns in 6/8 time, various different polyrhythms in the same measure of 4/4 time, mixing simple and compound counting methods. And the same here, creating some polyrhythms within the bar. And of course, the last thing that we have to mention is rests. Equally important, if not more important than the notes, are the spaces between the notes. It's so important to understand note values so that you understand how much time it takes for that note value to exist and how much time it takes for that note value to not exist. It's really important for each note that you're not speaking to take up as much time as all of the notes that you are speaking.